G'day legends, I hope that you're doing really well and you've had a great start to the week. Now today we're going to look at some strikes around Crimea. We'll talk some potential ends to the war, maybe peace negotiation stuff as well. We'll have a look at the vehicles and some things that I noticed from my military experience as well. And of course then we'll have a look at the maps and what has changed there. So we've seen both Ukraine and Russia make some ground in some areas. So Ukraine has launched strikes against the Chongar and Henechensk bridges. Now, these are two of the four land routes that connect Crimea with southern Ukraine. So let's have a look at why these are important, where they are, and what's going on here. So, of course, we have Ukraine in the centre, the capital of Kyiv. The red areas occupied since 22, and the purple since 14. Of course, this being Russia around here, and Ukraine's internationally recognised borders within the coloured regions. So this, of course, being Crimea, we come down and then we see in here is the Chongar Bridge, and up in Henechensk here, this bridge here is the bridge they are speaking about. Now, it does show a bridge here that's a walkway bridge. I had a look on Google Maps. So it is this one, and then the Chongar Bridge here. And these are important because you've got four ways through. Now, this is definitely the least of the most lightly used way down this spit of land here. And there could be other strikes on the other bridges at different times. But this is the logistical support to get into southern Ukraine, down in and out of Crimea. Currently, logistical support for Russia needs to either come through the south or through up to the north here, through the Kerch, up through one of these logistical routes. Now, if Ukraine was to cut off here, these would become increasingly important. So let's have a look at how this sort of went down over the day. So earlier in the day, we saw President Zelensky with a French Scalp missile aboard a Su-24 aircraft. And here you can see Zelensky signing the side of this as well. Now, it was believed these missiles were the same ones to then strike the bridges. These missiles have a range of 250 kilometres. So there was a lot of argument online whether this was a Storm Shadow or a Scalp, and this doesn't actually matter because they're essentially the exact same weapon, just under a different name. So let's have a look at the bridges. So, of course, we have the Chongar Bridge here. We have a drone shot as well of the hole punch dead centre here as well. Now, some have said this didn't go off, that the bunker bust munition just pushed through, and others are saying no, this was purposeful here to then strike the foundation and make a lot more repair on this bridge. I'm not an engineer, I do not know. So then on Google Maps, same area, we see this second bridge here. Now, interestingly, in this region as well, we do see that Russia has got shore mounts here for a pontoon in the same region, as we have seen the Chongar Bridge before striked by Storm Shadow missiles. Now, one thing people have pointed out is it does look like there could be another strike on this bridge here. Was that previous and hasn't been fixed? Was it something here? We're not really sure. We don't have any zoom-in photographs or anything really on that. Now, the Henechensk Bridge seemed to have a lot more damage. So here we have number one and number two, the two images that I've got for you. So it seems like the whole side of the bridge has collapsed off, but still sort of punched through this section here. So it is still fixable between these areas. It doesn't look like there's too much damage to the foundation here, but we don't really know. But definitely a lot more damage than the other one. And at least for now, there's going to be nothing really heavy that's going to go then across those. So this is then the Storm Shadow or Scalp. So same bloody weapon system. And they have found unexploded pieces found at the Chongar Bridge site, reportedly the guidance system and some other bits and pieces. So let's have a look over these. I'm not particularly sure exactly what I am looking at here, and a lot of people who say they will, I don't really know. Potentially, well, people are saying that this is then the guidance system. And what has got people saying it's the Scalp is this, that this weapon was then made in France. Now, this isn't concrete evidence, as just this plaque isn't 100%, because the number of components are made in both the UK and France. So this doesn't confirm 100% that it is French. But I think that mixed with then Zelensky signing the Scalp here on the same day, I think that points pretty concrete evidence that it actually then is. A lot are asking, why these bridges are being targeted, if Ukraine may need to use them if the offensive has success down into that region. Well, either way, these bridges are going to be coming down. It's as if Russia is, if they're on the retreat, are just going to leave these bridges up for Ukraine to push over more easily. So one way or another, these bridges are coming down, and some sort of temporary bridge will need to be made there if Ukraine do manage to push down here. So what Ukraine do need to do now, like we spoke about in the beginning, is hinder the logistical support to the front line via these bridges and other routes. Although I'm unsure why it's not more focused on the Kerch Bridge, as there's the singular bridge other than the four here, and a lot larger bridge, a lot more open water there. But I asked myself as well, with all these Russian drone and missile attacks, which there has been a large wave overnight, I've said up to 70, why is there not more of an effort to take down the Ukrainian bridges? Yes, bridges are very difficult to target and take down completely, as we have seen many times, but they're also incredibly important. I don't see why there's not more focus on that in areas that Russia know they're probably not going to get, but are areas that are being used for logistics, trains, whatever, to cross over. I don't really know. Now, Ukraine Defence has released a video speaking about the Australian Bushmaster. Now, I noticed a few things, and I sort of want to go over this video. Now, the Australian Bushmaster, made by Thales, is a fantastic vehicle, very capable, saved many lives in Afghanistan. And although we have seen a lot come under fire and sadly be lost in Ukraine, they are very good, and you can see how highly they... So, of course, this is a bushy. That is an automatic grenade launcher then on the roof.
Once designed to plow through the Australian outback, the Bushmaster protected mobility vehicle has found a new purpose.
So I just want to point out a few things as we go. And if you just want to watch it without my commentary, please go United24, Twitter, it's all over there. These are wire cutters on the top here. And it wasn't really made for the Australian outback. It was made for where there's an IED threat, like, say, Afghanistan, where they've got the V-shaped hull to push that off. But either way.
The mobility vehicle has found a new purpose, fighting the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Spoke to the 80th Airborne Brigade that's been fighting around Bakhmut for over 6 months. And they know exactly what it takes to break through the heavily mined territories that once were under Russian control.
So against mines, these would be a fantastic vehicle.
When we set off on a mission, if a shell hits nearby, we know we'll survive. Even if it's a direct hit, and I didn't spot it myself, the bush can withstand 2 shots from an RPG.
That's somewhat, I think, little bit misleading. It really, really would depend where that RPG hit. RPGs can push through a lot thicker armor than is on a Bushmaster, but where it hits is incredibly important on that. Bushmaster isn't super heavily armored at all. The windscreen and some of the side windows, they'll take 50 cal. The hull of them themselves, it'll start punching through very quickly.
With the BTR, you gotta sit on top. So if a mine detonates within a meter, everyone automatically becomes a casualty. But here,
that is the rear hatch, and this is the rear door, get in and out. There's only one door on a Bushmaster to get in and out of this rear door down a step.
You drive onto positions boldly, comfortably.
There, you can see he's talking about the V-shaped hull and the mines.
Then leave the same way.
The Bushmaster can move at a speed of 100 kilometers per hour.
They can move a lot faster than if you really push it.
Which is crucial while operating in an extremely hostile environment. Even when spotted by the anti-tank missile system, if a vehicle runs faster than 80, most radars cannot.
So there's a few things here that I want to point out. So one, I think a lot of people sort of don't know the type of vehicle that a Bushmaster is. It's a PMV. It's a protected mobility vehicle. It's protected. It's not heavily armoured. It's to go in, drop guys off, not be used as in the fight vehicle. It's protected in case you get bumped coming in. Now, a few other things is in this. This is then what I would say is the radio stack. That's what I would call it. Now, normally this is stacked with electronic gear, radios, other bits and pieces in here, 3 or 4 different radios sometimes. This is then the the cruise seat here. So it's behind you wouldn't call them navigator, but the second person sitting in the vehicle. And here is just a basic Motorola type radio. And I brought this up of, hey, are these vehicles going completely fitted with the Harris radios that we would have, the PWS system, which I'll talk about in a second, as well as some other bits and pieces. Now, I can't show you this exactly because I don't have great photos, but this, where we're talking about, is just behind where this panel is here. This is where all the radios would sit. This isn't just an air conditioning unit here with some magazines and whatever on it. And these are some of my images. And of course, this gives you an idea of the front. Now, the whole engine can actually push out of these very, very easily, making them very easy and very good to work on. But we will keep going on this.
However, speed and mine resistance are not only valuable assets. With mounted grenade launchers and machine guns, it is also used when ground troops in active battle need fire support.
So you see here that this is an AGL on top of a flat top vehicle. So there's no PWS system on this, which we do know have deployed to Ukraine, but we're not sure how many we actually gave. Like, is every vehicle running a PWS? Now, even we didn't have every vehicle with a PWS. This is this system here on top. Of course, this has your laser range finding, your thermal, and your normal camera operated then from inside the vehicle at this station joystick for then the crew command. But we do know that at least some were deployed with them. Now, this system is using here, the AGL, the Mark 19. That will also work on that same system, both with the 50 cal too. So we see a photograph here, and I was trying to find if they actually were using these grenade launcher with the PWS, and they are here. You can see this photograph. You can see these gold rounds. That means gold top. They're 40 mil high explosive rounds for this. So we definitely know some of the vehicles have this, and that this could go on there. And I think that is somewhat important because, of course, this system means that the complete top is closed, that with this you still have an open area here, which is why we didn't want to use them. We also know that a number of these with the PWS have shown up, and this was actually on display in Russia of being destroyed. We have this one here. I'm not sure if these are the same, but this one here has then the PWS system. And we have another photograph here of these lads with their RPGs and then PWS with then 40 mil on that. So from what I've seen, they probably prefer to have these 40 mil on top than actually just the regular machine gun. That said, the 40 mil does have a range of which it can't be used. So it can't be used close to the vehicle, but very far out it still can be, and is an area weapon more so than, you know, your typical machine gun.
Assault, we fire back with vengeance. As for the grenade launcher, if it's on a bush, the range is shorter. When we put it on a tripod, the range is 2,200 meters. When we're cleaning up an area, the gunner sits in a spot, and the turret's rotation angle allows him to work in any direction.
The Bushmaster weighs 15 tons.
All these vehicles. So go back to this photograph. This was my station here. This, of course, is the driver, right-hand drive. We're Aussies. And this is the gun station. So here you could switch between thermal, normal, and this here is like a joystick. Now, these are the best photos I actually have of this. I don't have any better here. Let's go with this. This is one of the EOD dogs from the Brits. That's actually my helmet, but this is like the joystick you use. Now, that joystick doesn't move. It's just like a thumb thing. But that can engage that system on top. So, of course, everyone in the vehicle and your weapon sits then behind you here. But very well laid out vehicle.
The Bushmaster weighs 15 tons. For an inexperienced driver, this can be quite overwhelming. But not for Vasil. In peacetime, he worked as a truck driver, so he knows how to handle these sort of giants.
It's good, both armor and off-road capability. It has 2 axles.
So, things I will say about this is I'm a 4-wheel drive. Like, that's the thing I do. I've owned a couple of 4-wheel drives. That's what me and my mates do. No car I've ever owned, and I've owned a Suzuki Sierra Jimny little thing from the 90s, which are fucking unbelievable, and if anyone knows Forbies, none of that would outdrive Bushmaster. A Bushmaster is insane off-road. Like, I've gone through shit, which I've looked at as 4-wheel drive, because there's no way a vehicle can drive through that. Incredible off-road. 3 diff lockers here. You've got front, center, rear, all from inside the cab, and at not 0, I believe, as well. And you can inflate, deflate the tyres as you go.
The gearbox
automatic does definitely help too.
There are lower gears, and there is an emergency tire inflation system.
This, the tire inflation system on this is every off-roader's dream that you go and have. It's got like road, dirt, snow, and run flat. Run flat, of course, if you've had a tire then shot out.
If you get a flat tire or hit a piece of shrapnel, you can use that. And if the tires get too muddy, you can deflate them. This one is from a shrapnel.
So you can see the windscreen here has significant damage in it, which definitely does degrade the strength of then that windscreen.
The glass held up, it's double glazed, both on the side and the front.
So that is something we have spoken about. What is the actual supply of getting these fixed? There's no way with a crack that big in the windscreen, we would then go back out on a mission. Have we got other windscreens there to be fitted? I don't know. These are the crew seats in the back. These were specifically made with like a harness seat, but like a 4-point harness to stop from like mine ID threatening you then hitting the
Bushmaster
roof.
usually transport 8 paratroopers while going on a mission. Once it reaches a drop-off point, the paratroopers...
One of the really nice things about Bushies too, I spoke about, that this is then the air conditioning unit, is these are air conditioned. Now I know that might sound like, oh pussy, what? But it really fucking matters. Like today in Zaporizhia, it's 38 degrees. Things like that, they really bloody matter.
As far as possible. This is one of the most dangerous jobs out there, since they are the ones who get to face the enemy head-on.
Although the reason I use this as an example is it shows that vehicles from the West likely are not in the same configuration that we may deploy them with. And I believe this is probably going to be way more prominent on more complex vehicles like tanks and especially jets. And even just from that little bit of footage, I can point out multiple sets of gear that is not in that we would 100% have, as well as that radio system they showed, which is just the handle. That's not going to be then connected to the onboard system of the PMV. Now, I can't remember for my life me what it's called. So this was my seat here. This is my station. Just down below this dog's left leg, you can just see the button here. That was a system to control all of the radios in the vehicle. So I could talk to just the vehicles in my packet. I could talk back to headquarters, blah, blah, blah. I could switch between stations off that. So and everyone in the back can listen to if they would like. So you can just plug in a headset. I think you can probably see my headset somewhere in here. Maybe not. I think it's actually, it's this. It's strung just over this yellow thing. That the commander in the back can listen into that too. So that these little bits and pieces that we've spoken about before, that, you've got this Leopard, blah, blah, blah. I'd like to see exactly what's in that compared to this. I think that is just interesting that, there's some difference definitely there. Now, as we know, a 2-day summit was held in Saudi Arabia where senior officials from 40 countries have met in Jeddah in an attempt to draft key principles on ending the war. Now, 40 countries attended, but Russia was not one of them. And Russia was not even invited, which I completely get the principle of not inviting Russia, but I think without Russia in the room, that the talks can only ever go so far. They're still a belligerent country in this conflict. They're still involved. But before this, Dmitry Peskov, a spokesman for the Russian president, has told reporters undoubtedly Russia will follow this meeting. It remains to be seen what goals are set and what organisers actually plan to talk about. We've repeatedly said that any attempts to somehow contribute to a peaceful settlement are worthy of a positive assessment. Now, these meetings were closed. We don't exactly know what was spoken about, but they did include the US, India, the EU, and China's special envoy for Euro-Asian affairs, Li Hui. Li has said, "We have many disagreements and we have heard different positions, but it is important that our principles are shared." Now, The Guardian has reported Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky said he hoped the initiative would lead to a peace summit of world leaders this autumn to endorse the principles, based on his own 10-point formula for a settlement. Now, yesterday again, Peskov has told the New York Times there are currently no grounds for an agreement. We will continue the operation for the foreseeable future, talking about then the special military operation. The New York Times as well had this. I asked Mr. Peskov, the Kremlin spokesman, if Russia sought more Ukrainian territory beyond the 4 provinces annexed. No, he said, we just want to control all the land we have now written into our constitution as ours. And some have pulled this as, hey, they're not going to continue the offensive. That's where it is. We don't know what is exactly going on. What more do Russia then want? We don't know. But with neither Russia or Ukraine willing to negotiate any territory, this long and bloody war will continue into the future. So let's be realistic. There's no way Russia is just going to pull troops from the DPR, LPR and Crimea without a fight. They see that land as much theirs as Ukraine does theirs. Now, what does the international community say about that? Well, we know what it says about that. We know what we think about that. That we'll know that's Ukraine land. But that's how they see it. They see it as much theirs as they think it's theirs. And they're not just going to pull guys from here without a fight, or at least something to their own benefit. And Ukraine has been incredibly firm in their stance that there is no solution other than Russia being off their territory and a return to the 1991 borders. Although the offensive for Russia has fell flat in the first few months of, I guess, their initial goal of taking more of Ukraine, and with Ukraine's offensive now passing 60 days, is looking to have possibly done a bit of the same. So we don't really know where this is going to go. If no one's willing to negotiate anywhere, well, it's just going to continue. But this is an incredibly complex issue. And while the thought of posting on Twitter, go home, Russian invader, might help you sleep, it's not actually doing anything. Without anything like this, Ukraine have one option, is to push out the Russians by military force. So, of course, the war of attrition continues. Now, am I saying what Ukraine and Russia should do? No, I'd say Russia should never have gone into Ukraine in the beginning, but we're beyond that. Hindsight is the foresight of arseholes. Where do we go from here? So I don't really know, but this will come over the next year. I don't know how long this is going to go, but is support dwindling? And as I've said many times, a big factor for this war I see is the next year election for the 2024 US presidency. And running into this. Now, CNN, a lot of people laugh at me every time I use CNN as a source, but they have released here, and CNN typically a very left-leaning American politics, have released an article, majority of Americans oppose more US aid war with Russia, that most Americans oppose Congress authorizing additional funding to support Ukraine in its war with Russia, according to their then poll. Overall, 55% say that Congress should not authorize additional funding to support Ukraine versus 45% who say Congress should authorize such funding. 51% say that the US has already done enough to help Ukraine, while 48% say it should do more. A poll conducted in the early days of the Russian invasion, late Feb 2022, found 62% of people who felt the US should have been doing more. So this was right after then the war had started. So this breaks down a little bit further. When asked specifically about the types of assistance the US could provide to Ukraine, there is broader support to help with intelligence gathering at 63%, military training at 53%, and then providing weapons at 43%, alongside very slim backing for US military forces to participate in combat operations, then at 17%. A bigger worry across partisan lines is the new poll is that the war will continue without resolution for a long time. Nearly 8 in 10 are worried about it, including 82% Democrats, 75% independents, and 73% of Republicans. So I just thought this was interesting, particularly from CNN publishing this, about what is the actual support here on the ground, and what will that have the outcome on elections into the future, as things are really going to start picking up for the promotions of the candidates going forward. So I digress from that. Let's then have a look over the maps. Of course, we have Ukraine in the centre, the capital of Kyiv. Now, we've talked about these areas a million times. What have we actually seen change? Now, we haven't seen much change really anywhere in the south or the east, but we come up into the north, and this is what I speak about. We have seen Ukraine make amount of ground. Now, to the southwest of Svatov here, we do see Ukraine did make an amount of ground over the last 24 hours in then this region, and that is backed up then by Suryak maps. Again, Warmapper has said that there is little to no changes on the maps, so it does show in the blue here that Ukraine did make an amount of ground in here, being shown over both maps fairly closely, but it also did say that Russia did have an advance in the west towards Novogorivka here, so Russia took some and Ukraine took some here. That is what Suryak maps is showing, although the deep state isn't showing then the Russian advance, and that is the only change being shown over the deep state map, and there's no change shown on the ISW anywhere as well. So let's then have a look at the Suryak maps at some other things as well. So you're saying down here near Robotyny, which is to the south, of course, of Orokhiv, that Russia did manage to take back some ground here. And we have seen that over some maps previously, that this area was taken a lot by Ukraine and then taken back by Russia. We saw that on Deep State over the last couple of days. Noted that Russia had a small advance near Volshana. So let's look at where Volshana actually sits. So here is Volshana, Liman, Pershi here. Now, this isn't showing any difference on this map, but it is right up to then the northeast. And as Suryak maps is saying, that Russia is moving more of offensive stuff up into here to try and draw Ukrainian forces on their offensive away from then the south and the east. As well, it has said that Ukraine have had an attack in Uruzhany from Staromorsky from both the east and to the south. So where are we talking is down in here. This is Uruzhany, sits in here, and Staromorsky. Now, we have spoken about that this could be a real threat to the Russians. Now, this map shows they have a lot more to the east than a lot of the other maps are showing. So see where it sort of shows Uruzhany here, and then it dips straight down here. That isn't being really shown to the equivalent on the deep state or the ISW that is shown on some of the Russian maps. But it is said that Russia did manage to repel then these attacks in here. So this is somewhere we've spoken about a lot, that we could potentially see a lot more movement in and around there. But that is the end of our mapping and will be the end of the video today. Now, I know this might be a little bit longer. I do apologise. I'm trying to get these down to both my voice and whatever, but I just find myself talking too much stuff. But we aren't seeing much map movements at all, especially not in support of the counter-offensive, although we know there's a lot of moving parts here, that there could be a lot being done behind the lines, more so than actually front line movements. But legends, that's it for today. I'd like to really thank you for all your support. Look after yourselves. I'll speak to you soon. Bye-bye.